According to a new report from ESPN, the San Francisco 49ers and wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk are quote-unquote not close on contract negotiations. So does this leave the door open for the Pittsburgh Steelers to pull off the trade of the offseason and land the second-team All-Pro? We'll talk about that today on Steelers Talk, but before we get into it,
let's go, Mavs! Let's go, Mavs!
So Coop and I, we have a little bit of a bet going on today. So I'm actually from Minnesota, if you guys don't know that. So my Timberwolves just made the Western Conference Finals for the first time in a very long time, and the Dallas Mavericks will be their opponent.
Let's go.
Coop is obviously a big Mavericks fan. He's the channel owner of our Mavericks channel here at Chat Sports. So obviously I'm cheering for my Timberwolves. Coop, how do you think the Mavs are going to do in this series? I think the Timberwolves are going to win.
It'll be a good series, but give me Luka over anybody. Mavs in 7. Let's go.
All right, let us know down there in the comments section. Who do you guys got? Or what's that?
Mark Cuban, Pittsburgh native.
That's right. Mark Cuban's a Pittsburgh native, by the way. So let me know down there in the comment section who you got. You got to go DAL for the Dallas Mavericks or MIN for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Give you a little hint right now, it's going to be Ant and the Timberwolves. Okay, now let's get into this report from Jeremy Fowler from ESPN talking about the contract negotiations between Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers. This is what Fowler had to say. This one's tricky because he was implicated in some trade talks around the draft. He wants a new contract, has 1 year left. I'm told the 49ers certainly are open to doing a deal, but talks have not progressed enough where things are close. And so, is he going to show up for their workouts? Hard to tell right now. The market is pretty set for him. Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit did that deal recently, about $28 million a year. So that's something for Aiyuk and the 49ers to work off of, but I'm told they're not quite there yet. So the big question remains here is, can the Pittsburgh Steelers still potentially land the second-team All-Pro receiver this offseason if Aiyuk and the 49ers are not able to strike up a deal at some point during this offseason? Now, something to keep in mind here is that Amon-Ra St. Brown did sign a contract earlier this offseason here that put it at 4 years, $28 million per season. So I'm guessing Aiyuk wants at least this amount of money here, that $28 million per year figure, in order to stay in San Francisco long term. And I would say that, in terms of a trade, the 49ers are reportedly looking for the A.J. Brown package. And if you remember what the Titans ended up getting for A.J. Brown when the Eagles traded for him a couple years back, it was a first rounder and a third round pick the following year. So that is probably the framework of a Brandon Aiyuk deal if Omar Khan is going to end up doing this, giving up a first round pick next year and a third round pick in 2026, if not 2025 as well, which is a pretty hefty ransom there for somebody in Brandon Aiyuk, who is probably worth it in terms of his talent. He is a second-team All-Pro receiver, one of the best route runners in football, a great run blocker, would really fit in well with Arthur Smith's offense and really give the Steelers a bona fide, star option opposite of George Pickens in this offseason. But honestly, guys, I'm not holding my breath on a Brandon Aiyuk deal. The 49ers GM, John Lynch, certainly seems to want to keep Aiyuk on the roster. This is what he's had to say about potential wide receiver trade talks. During the course of drafts and off seasons, do conversations happen? Talking about trades there. Absolutely, they do. But we're past that now. I'm doing everything in my power to keep our roster together. That's my goal. And I don't question that. I've got so much belief. When you've got Brandon Aiyuk and Debo, those are guys we drafted. They're guys we take a lot of pride in who they've become. We couldn't be more proud of those guys. So listen, man, I don't think a trade is going to happen, but if the con artist himself, Omar Khan, is able to land Brandon Aiyuk in a trade, I think that's going to probably be the move of the offseason. Around the National Football League, maybe besides getting Russell Wilson here for the Pittsburgh Steelers here, getting a guy like Aiyuk, who is a second-team All-Pro, who would be a bona fide star option on the opposite side of George Pickens, really putting the cherry on top of what has been a very productive offseason for the Steelers GM, Omar Khan, this year. And I would be stoked stoked, and you better believe if they get this trade done, guys, we're going to be going live, so make sure you click that subscribe button right now just in case something happens. But in the meantime here, let me know down there in the comments section, would you accept this trade for Brandon Aiyuk? Are you giving up a first rounder and a third rounder in exchange for Aiyuk services? Type A if you would accept it, or type D if you're going to decline it. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. So now let's shift over to something that a former Steelers player and current Steelers scout, Ike Taylor, believes that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be able to survive their late season gauntlet here because of their run game with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, and he claims that the Steelers are very much built to win late in the season because of the way they can control the clock and the way they can play defense and the way they can pound the rock with their two running backs on the roster. Here is kind of the slate there, final 8 games of the year, and it's going to be tough on paper, folks. You got Baltimore twice, Cleveland twice, Cincinnati twice, so you got all of your divisional games in the most competitive and most physical division in football right at the end of your season, and then the 2 weeks that you get a little bit of a break from that physical brand of football in the AFC North, you have to play the Philadelphia Eagles, another physical team, on the road in Week 15, and then you have to play the former champs at home on Christmas on a short week in Week 17 against Kansas City. So it's definitely going to be a tough stretch here. So I'm going to give my take on this and kind of Ike Taylor's thoughts on the Steelers surviving this stretch here in just a second. But first, I want to have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics. You can go to chatsports.com/Russ right now to get an officially licensed Russell Wilson Steelers jersey in your collection today. If you're a big believer in Russell Wilson like I am, I think he's going to lead the Steelers to double-digit victories this year and a playoff berth. If you're with me on that, go ahead and go to chatsports.com/Russ. Right now, that link is our link here. So if you click that link and you get a jersey, it actually helps support the channel here. So if you want to help us out here and you want to get a Russell Wilson jersey in your closet, you can go to chatsports.com/Russ. We'll put that link in the comments and description of today's show so you can help out the program. Okay, now let's get into my thoughts on this in this kind of late season stretch. And I completely agree with Ike Taylor here that the Steelers are built for cold weather football. Okay, you look at the brand of football that this team wants to play this year. They want to play excellent defense, and they want to pound the rock. They want to control the clock, all these different things. And I think with the roster currently constructed, they are 100% able to do that. And I think they're one of the most well-prepared and well-equipped teams to play that brand of football when it's late into the season, when there's snow on the ground, when the weather's not great, when it's super cold outside, all these different things. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have what it takes to control the clock in those weather football games in the AFC North, particularly late in the season. You're going to be playing in Pittsburgh when it's raining, when it's snowing, when it's cold outside, all these different things. You have to be able to run the football in those situations, and you have to be able to play sound defense. And I absolutely think that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be this season. And my prediction for this team down that final 8-game stretch here is I think it's going to go a lot smoother than people think. I'm hearing people out on like Fox Sports and ESPN saying the Steelers are going to go 0-8 during that period. My reaction to that is no way they lose 8 straight games, all right? They're not losing to Cleveland at home. I don't think they're going to lose both games against Cincinnati. Cincinnati can't run the football like the Steelers can. So listen, man, I think that, yes, this is a tough stretch of football. They're going to have to play some really good football teams during that stretch of the season. But you can also kind of look at the silver lining here, and you can look at it as a benefit to going up against playoff caliber teams right before a potential playoff run. You're going to be battle tested through those final 8 weeks of the season, man, and I think that's only going to benefit this football team because we know playoff football, it's high intensity, it's high stakes, and I completely expect that final stretch of the season to feel exactly that way, which is going to prepare this team to potentially go on a run towards the Super Bowl. Once again, guys, here's the final 8 games, and let me know down there in the comments section right now, how many of these games do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers win at the end of the season? Let me know right now down there in the comments section what you guys think. And my answer here is I think they'll win probably at least half, but they might even win a little bit more than that. We know the Steelers steal the Baltimore Ravens lunch money every single year. I don't think that's going to be any different. I think Cincinnati, especially later in the season, they're going to be reliant on Joe Burrow to throw in the cold. He doesn't have the best arm in the world. They don't have a great run game. I think the Steelers have a great chance in both of those football games. Cleveland might be a little bit tough as well, but if Deshaun Watson stinks, I think those two games are very winnable as well. And then even the Kansas City game. I mean, I like Isaiah Pacheco, but I think the Steelers can really, especially at home, control that football game, especially if there's snow on the ground on Christmas Day. So I absolutely think the Steelers are built to win in this part of the schedule. And even though the opponents they're going up against are pretty tough, I think the Steelers are tough as nails as well, and the standard is the standard, and will continue to be the standard here in Pittsburgh by winning 4 or 5 of those final 8 games. All right, that's going to be it for today's show, guys. Make sure you type real one in all caps down there in the comments section if you haven't already. To let me know that you are a real one down there in the comments section, because not everybody makes it to the end of the show. So I really do appreciate everybody that sticks around with us to the very end. And make sure you click that subscribe button, because if you are a real one, you made it to the end of the show and you liked what you heard today, we're going to have more Steelers coverage with you guys tomorrow. 2 videos for you guys breaking down the start of Steelers OTAs. So make sure you click that subscribe button for our OTA coverage for your Pittsburgh Steelers.